starting to record. This is what I like about Zoom, because it will the thing with Skype, that it will like show you like something is recording. It won't have a robot voice. Anyway, we've done too many intros where we're talking about the quality of Zoom versus Skype. So hello everyone, welcome to Karate Without Belts. My name is John. I've been dragged into this, not kicking and screaming, just kind of like, oh wow, this is what happens when someone else has an idea and it's like, oh, we want to do this. I'm like, all right, I got a platform, so why not? I am joined by Dan, who's now glomming on into the podcast, not glomming, triumphantly walking, busting down doors into the world of podcasting, and joined by the illustrious, the one and only, much like Prince, Madonna, and Cher, just two letters, J and B. Welcome.
JB Yeager's the full name, but yeah, sorry, that's all I put in the Skype box.
You're just gonna be JB from now on.
That's fine with me, you know. If I can be half as famous as Bono, I've done something right in my life, I guess.
Absolutely.
I can't believe I left that.
I'll take half as rich too.
Just don't put your music out on iTunes. Like force everybody. Yeah. Just don't do that. Don't do that. He came out and publicly apologized for it.
That was the only way my wife knew who U2 was before we met.
Well, it's a step.
Hey.
I don't have vertigo, but gentlemen, how are things going? How has this week in training been?
It's been going really well. I got a lot of rounds in, mostly focusing on Filipino sword fighting and a little bit of German messer work. Nice. And today has been a recovery day. I woke up and my right leg said, "No, you're not doing anything quickly."
That's delicious. What you mean by Filipino sword fighting? You mean like more like the actual use of a blade, or are you talking more like
we use training blades, but we spar with them. Headgear, lacrosse gloves, and the weapons are firm but padded, so they'll leave a welt, but they won't break anything. We tend to save the hard sticks for occasional rounds. Just like you don't want to go full contact boxing or kickboxing all the time, because you'll just be hobbling for everyday life. Little touch and go sparring, technical sparring, that's the way to go.
Okay, definitely get behind that. Dan, how about you?
Not bad. I'm kind of bummed I'm not working on some messer work. Gosh.
It's something I've gotten into recently. We can play next time we get together.
Nice.
It goes, Messer's the German long knife, and it blended really well with my Kali. So I just started playing with some of the tactics in my sparring matches. So
yeah. Does the Messer work have a whole lot of high hanging guards like the German longsword work?
Here we are, JKD talking about on a karate podcast talking about HEMA.
It's all the same.
Potato Patrese.
The episode right there. It's all the same. The HEMA effect book I'm working with now, Parent Fade. I haven't gotten to any real hanging guards. I've seen that in a lot of other systems. A lot of low guards. That I've really enjoyed employing against my partners to lure in the high shots.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
Risky but fun.
Yes.
Cool.
We were talking about low guards. So this week in the Bastone class, we were working on taunting, and one of the things that we do when we taunt is we you'll see me in videos like bounce the stick back and forth like this, and a lot of times that stick, when it bounces back, it actually hits their shin. So you bang, like you hit the shin to draw them in, so that you can wind or beat or do whatever to take line. So we were employing similar tactics.
Cool.
Beyond that,
I've followed some of that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, all right, and then See, because Dan regaled me with this story of how he learned Italian stick fighting one time, and like my kind of my thing was like, so when Dan was a wee lad, him and his grandpappy went out into the backyard, and as mind you, this is me be doing this in a bad Irish accent. I'm talking about Italian stick fighting. He took him out in the backyard as a wee lad, and they grabbed some sticks and were just fiddling about, hitting each other and having a good old time. And little did little Dan know that he was actually learning an ancient art of Italian stick fighting. That's not to belittle what you were saying, but it's just like that's like just like how my brain somehow like remembered it.
And it's totally what happened, John. Totally, right. It's word for word. Everything about that was true. I just posted a picture not too long ago of me on this little tractor that my pap had. He would let us ride it around. That was about the age that I worked with him. So I lived right next door to him for like a year and a half, something like that. And that was when primarily that I did work with him. And so I was 10, maybe. Really wasn't until I was in college that I realized that there actually was Italian stick fighting. And then I went, oh, I watch videos and I go, yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, that's what we did. Holy crap, But yeah, I was a wee lad in the backyard,
Wow, that all circle around to say, JB, because we're talking about just mixing and matching and whatever works. Yes. Things that we may or may not know, may or may have just been taught to us one time, and then we pick it up and run with it. Dan had mentioned this to me before, like about like JKD, and it was like, what the hell is that? I've not, no, mind you.
He's got the book.
I do have the book. I have the book right here. It is.
Hey,
I do actually have the book, and I did like buy it to do like research on it, which I just ended up not doing.
Why research when we can ask somebody a question?
Well, no, it's not. This wasn't a recent development either, but it's just like I've had this book for a while, and it's like probably one of the best-selling books, martial arts books of the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and I venture to have anybody read that thing and then walk away being like, I know what Jeet Kune Do is, and I'm like,
yeah, I was actually having a conversation that Dan was involved with as well, with someone who did not have any actual JKD background in their training, but was pontificating about what JKD is and what JKD training involved, because they'd read all of Bruce Lee's books. Well, Bruce Lee only wrote a few books in his lifetime, and none of them lay out an actual curriculum for JKD. The Tao of Jeet Kune Do that you're holding there, great book, and like you kind of said, I don't think you can be a martial artist and not have that on your bookshelf that you haven't picked up at some point, at least of our generation. The Tao it was published posthumously. He had already passed away, and it's largely just a collection of his notes, which is that people just cobbled together, editors, his wife, a couple other people after his death, and it has quotes that he had written down from other people for his own personal notes, so they don't have any attribution. So that's where the kind of the big joke. Anytime you see a Bruce Lee meme on Instagram or Facebook, the quote is probably not his.
Right.
It's just something that he wrote down for himself, but got popularized after his death and attributed to him.
I mean, you can't blame somebody for taking somebody like notes somebody famous had like put together and then put it out there, and then it'd be like sells well. Like you can't. I don't doubt the authenticity of it, but it is just one of those things that I think a lot of people have, and they have it, but they don't know what it means. Like they don't really know how to like, if it's really not supposed to be anything at all, like, and it's just put together and like it's got a couple good ideas in it, but just it's a couple good ideas, and then you're just like, yeah.
Well, and a lot of it, like I said, it's his notes. You have different sections of the book divided up. Hand tools. Some of it does lay out his thoughts on curriculum or strategy and tactics, but it doesn't tell you. It's not a how-to book, but you can absolutely take things from it. I study it all the time. Refer to it when I'm teaching my students. It, you know, I got my first copy of that. I think I was 11 or 12, and it's the reason I'm here today in large part. So,
I got the book probably around the same time, and I remember like that book was probably one of the first influences of Chinese philosophy that I had. Like that book was the reason I studied Taoism. And then realized that he copied everything from Taoism, but
right.
Well, not everything, but you know what I mean. Like I remember like going and going, oh, this is where that quote came from.
Yep.
But it wouldn't have been for that book, really.
Yeah, you open it up, and then the first actual chapter heading is on Zen. So that chapter, as well as to kind of bring it home to your podcast, the first system I ever studied when I was a young man was Matsubayashi Ryu Karate, and the founder, Shoshin Nagamine, was very, very influenced by Zen. Was recognized as a Zen master by Chozenji Temple in Hawaii. That kind of started me on that path, and I got to the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. And so for me, I just thought, oh, that's what martial arts is about. It's about Zen. There's quotes in that section from the Platform Sutra, quotes from Alan Watts, various sources, both, I don't want to say legit and illegit, but authentic Zen and pop culture Zen that was around in the 60s and 70s that influenced Bruce.
But I think that's actually probably the best not analogy, but like best description of like that point in time, because you do essentially have all of this kind of old guard or old school stuff that largely went untouched and was just kind of largely like passed down as was. And then you have what was becoming like pop everything because of like the coming tide of globalization and just and then just mass media becoming a thing. Tie that into multimedia and a movie star, right? And you've got essentially not only a guy who, had he gone on, would have had much more claim, but also a martial arts style, a system, a branding exercise.
All of
this
the
is
above.
exactly. And that's why I'm like, I don't know how to define that, because there have been so many people who have attempted, and it's kind of like what happens with karate a lot too. It's like, that's a real karate, or blah, 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 blah. I'm like, is this just another permeation of that issue, or is that something else? And I'm not an expert on it. All I know is this one fight I've been having for a long time about authenticity and inauthenticity, and
those debates take place within the JKD community and without the JKD community. It's some of the best explanations of JKD I've ever heard, come from people who have seen all of Bruce Lee's movies but have never trained a day in their life. Those are always fun to listen to. But no, it's an ongoing argument, discussion. This is how my teacher defined JKD. Well, this is how my teacher defines JKD. And for an art that supposedly is, not about lineages and any of that traditional classical mess and nonsense that they like to put down, JKD has more lineage wars than your average karate style or Wing Chun. And so for the most part, I just want to say, okay, cool, you do what you want to do. I'm going to go back and train. For me, systematically, I don't have an issue looking at it as a style, which contradicts Bruce Lee's exact words. And there will definitely be people who, when they listen to this podcast, will come for me with burning torches. Is it a style of no style? In a sense, yes. Any martial art, any person who creates a path or a system or curriculum does so out of their own personal development, their own path, their own experiences, the people they learned from. They lay out something. Their next student who comes along, even if they copy every single thing their teacher said, is still going to bring their own experiences and influence and ideas and how they teach. So, I don't see that as being any different than, say, the Ryuha system that you see in traditional Japanese and Okinawan martial arts.
Okay.
Similar.
My JKD is not my teacher's JKD, is not his teacher's JKD, is not Bruce's JKD. And if we're going to sit here and argue over who has the authentic Bruce Lee's JKD, have fun with those arguments. I'm either going to be on the mat training or
that guy's dead.
Having a drink. Yeah, that guy's dead.
Right.
No. I had this conversation with my students earlier this year. We should make our marketing be better than Bruce Lee, just to troll people and piss them off. Because one, Bruce Lee's dead, and two, he was always evolving. Why aren't we?
Yeah.
And for a lot of the JKD community, that's not an issue. But
do you feel that there was some, there's people who are more on the side of more where you're at, where they have roots from training in that time with Bruce Lee and Dan Izano and stuff like that, and are just kind of continuing to do their own thing, and they have legitimacy not through following XYZ curriculum, but from saying these are the principles laid out by Jeet Kune Do, and this is what we do, and they don't get into those lineage wars? Or do you feel like this is the established Jeet Kune Do, everyone do your own thing, the end?
Saying that, are there more people who are interested in progressing?
Yeah. Or they're more on the side of essentially taking just moving on and moving forward, but always kind of looking back at those roots of the time, saying yeah, this is what we were doing back in the 60s, and then this is how this guy progressed and this guy progressed, and we still come together at certain points and mix and match and pass it and exchange notes? Or is it just become more it's everything, so it's nothing, so it's anything?
So this kind of the stereotypical divide that people have these conversations about is you have original JKD, and then they'll call it JKD concepts or something along those lines, which basically means coming out of the Inosanto side of things, for lack of a better delineation. The original JKD people like to say they're doing Bruce's original curriculum. The interesting thing about that is Bruce Lee, like any other martial artist, had stages in his development. And so the students who trained with him at X given point, if you trained with him in Seattle and you do exactly what he taught you, that's your original thing. Although that was more of the pre-JKD Junfan Gung Fu. If you trained with him in LA, you were doing one thing. This idea that there is an original JKD, that's kind of spurious in itself. And then on the Inosanto side of things, you have some practitioners who are definitely kind of referring back to the original concepts and referring back to Bruce Lee's roots. One of the criticisms responses to the criticism against the Inosanto camp was, well, if you go to Guru Dan's school and take the JKD class, that's going to be what he got from Bruce Lee. If you take the Kali class, that's not the JKD class. There's not a mix there. And then you have people like my teacher, Burton Richardson, who's kind of continued down that path for himself, who studied under Guru Dan and worked with a lot of the top mixed martial artists and Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructors, and continued his path. He was one of the first dog brothers. He was one of the first dog brothers in the first three. So full contact, stick fighting, all of that, and continued his development there. So it runs the gamut, and I've probably offended everyone on every side, in my brief stereotypes here. If I pissed you off, well, okay.
If you've ever listened to anybody who's ever listened
if
to
I pissed you off, welcome to the internet and martial arts.
Welcome to this podcast.
There'll be someone else along in the next 5 minutes to piss you off even more about something else. So.
I want to say I'm actually one of the cool-headed ones on the podcast. What is it? If you've ever listened to an episode where we have Jeremy on here, he's like, I might offend. He kind of has this line, I might offend somebody. I'm like, dude, you're not Rush Limbaugh. Don't worry about it. We're not. No one has ever said the woke have taken JKD or anything like that. So we're not.
Not yet.
I don't think, and this is the thing though, I don't think anyone would be like, this is what drives me crazy is like, is some people would be like, well, we're gonna be angry about what somebody said on a podcast, or this person says about this, and I will tell it on myself. Whereas like we see some famous karate YouTubers, and everyone's like, I can't believe he rah rah rah. I'm just like, so what? He's just like a blonde Aryan boy. Like, don't worry about it. He's just a YouTube guy. So what? This guy said one thing. This doesn't stop you from training. So having an opinion on something is helping actually expand people's understanding of it, and thus fulfilling what Bruce Lee wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so I'm in my mid-40s. I've been doing martial arts since I was a young boy, and there have definitely been stages along my development where I would encounter this personality or read this book by this person. I believe some crazy, stupid things in my life. I guarantee you, each of us at some point in our careers as martial artists actually believed that you could do a palm strike to someone's nose and drive that right through their brain. Guarantee you, at some point. Dan, I know you still can.
I'm not going to brag
we've
or
all
anything.
believed stupid things, and then we furthered our knowledge. And this doesn't pertain to martial arts; it pertains to life in general. So I think there's a concern among some that if so-and-so gets all their information from this source who isn't me, they're going to go down the path of the dark side forever and ever and be trapped. And, there's some truth to that, and that if that person is a bad actor, if they're ethically compromised, you do want to worry about that. But the majority of people who are getting their information from YouTube are dabblers, and whatever that subject matter is. I have students who have come in and watched this YouTuber talk about Bruce Lee or read this book or article about Bruce Lee and think that's what JKD is about, and then they encounter what we do, and I'm not saying what we do is the real thing, but it's what we do, and it opens their mind. And for the most part, most of them go, oh, okay, I guess that was wrong or incorrect, or I misunderstood it, and now I move on to the next.
How much do you feel that's like a matter of mass media? Just people are like, I saw this on YouTube, versus like, oh, this is a real person. I'm actually walking into like a real situation. Do you see like that kind of like reality sensitivity versus living in the bubble, the like social media bubble or whatever?
I think that's part of it. I mean, we are so overwhelmed by social media, especially in the martial arts. I mean, I can go on YouTube now and Google or YouTube martial arts that might have been like a byline in some encyclopedia when I was in my teens, and get hours of video, sparring footage, watch their forms, whatever it is they do, and that's just the authentic stuff. And so the BS is out there even more. It's hard for people to sort through that, and they just kind of go with what it is. And the way I look at it, the people who are going to cling to whatever one person said on YouTube in contradiction of the real person in front of them or the multiple real people in front of them, that person wasn't going to get anywhere with it anyways. Once or twice a month, I get hilarious phone calls from people who say they want to sign up for lessons, but what they really want to do is ask me random questions about Bruce Lee. Like, did he really kill that guy in Thailand like he did in the movie? And I'm like, what does this have to do with training? Thank you for your time. I appreciate your phone call. And even if I schedule one of those guys for a session, they never show up. So those people aren't your target audience. Those people aren't your students. Let them have the opinions they want. Focus on the people who are there to actually learn and grow and want your help and are there to help you.
Do you find, being that you do teach that and Bruce Lee is a part of that image, so to speak, mm-hmm. do you get weird, I don't want to say weird people, but you know what I mean? Do you get a lot of weird people that come in and want to like train, like, I want to be Bruce Lee or I want to be this or that? Like,
most of them don't make it past the phone call. Like I was just saying, the amount of people I get who call me who are stoned off their gourd. I get a lot of calls, and this is not my personal line. This is getting routed through our website and everything. I get a lot of calls after like 11 p.m. on a Friday night.
Wow. Wow.
You know? So,
Hey man,
Dude, I was
Hey,
just
man.
watching Enter the
Don't go against
Dragon.
it, but I get their
Dude.
background information. I call them the next Monday morning at 9 a.m. and they rarely answer. But yeah, the really weird ones tend not to get past the phone call.
Bruce
The
isn't
people
here,
who
man.
do show up, if they can kind of have some weird theories or whatever, if they make it through a class, they're generally they're willing to do what Bruce Lee said, empty your cup, which again wasn't actually him. It was I forget what the name of the Zen monk was in that story, but if they're willing to empty their cup and just experience the real thing, then they're good to go. But yeah, occasionally I get people come in and it's just like, yeah, I don't know what you're here for. You're here for your ego. You're not here to train. You're not here to learn how to become a better person.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the Bruce Lee imagery, I do get the occasional person who run their background information and they've got lists of felonies and they think I'm going to teach them. So yeah.
So do you do a SLED check on all your students, like a background check?
No, just
if you get the feeling, you get the inkling.
I was a private investigator in another career.
Gotcha. I know schools that run background checks on all their students, and
it's
not
it's
a bad idea.
Depending on what you're teaching, alongside JKD, we do Filipino Kali, and there's definitely stuff there when you start playing with knives. I'm not interested in giving to the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they can't go on YouTube and find out the same stuff.
True.
Or buy somebody else's DVDs. But
but
that's not in your school.
Yeah.
It's not on me.
Mm-hmm,
so.
mm-hmm.
You don't have to live with it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Okay, so that brings us all the way back to this question then. Okay, so we kind of have these kind of lineage wars, people who are out there. We have the kind of like, hey, Bruce isn't here right now, stoner guys. You have the kind of dangerous like people who are like getting high on a Friday night, eating pizza and watching kung fu movies. You have the kind of dangerous
which I'm not judging them for. That's not a bad thing to do on a Friday night in the safety of your own home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't judge on this podcast.
Call me at 11 p.m.
We've had a drunk cast on here at one point. Well, not drunk cast. We were drinking, but not drunk cast.
Just coffee for me, John. Just coffee. That's all.
BCAAs.
I don't think we could put anything in Dan that would be on coffee. We would
listen.
He would
John,
probably end up in a different dimension if we started feeding him anything else.
Listen. God created the earth in 6 days. You know why God created the earth in 6 days, John?
Why?
Because coffee wasn't invented yet. And then he said, you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm going to make coffee so that nobody needs to take this long to do anything ever again.
Oh, Dan, you and these dad jokes. But that's staying in. That's staying in. So the question then is, what is JKD? How can we best define it? Right? Like, how can it be
39 minutes in. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to go in the dictionary, JB. So,
All right. So you'll get a lot of possible answers from people, and some of them might be right, some of them might be accurate, some of them might be very accurate for them. The answer I go with is one of Bruce Lee's notes from the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and it's that JKD is a way of life. It's a movement towards willpower and self-control and enlightenment. And so, there's nothing in there about kicking or punching people, at least in my primary definition. That again, not my definition, his own words.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to what you were saying before. It's like the beginning was talking about Zen and Buddhism, so it kind of is the martial arts aspect of that. How much, and this is where it gets into this idea of, people will watch like Enter the Dragon and be like, it is like a finger pointing at I forget if that's a deleted scene or not, but like it's like a finger pointing at the stars. Do not look at the finger. Yeah,
which is another lifted straight from Zen teachings. In fact, I spent 7 going on 8 years living in a Buddhist temple, learning Zen, and that reference is actually in one of the records of some of my great ancestors in that lineage. The finger pointing at the moon. If you focus on the finger, you'll miss all the heavenly glory, as Bruce Lee said.
So then how does this translate into, is this him essentially being somebody who did like Wing Chun Kung Fu, Cha-Cha dancing apparently, and all this other stuff that he was doing, the martial arts, being an actor and stuff. Is this him, a guy and running into this Buddhist philosophy and then essentially attempting to fuse it onto what he already does, and so as to like live more secularly with what he knows and bringing it into that, and so therefore it's the empty cup is, the cup itself is the Buddhist philosophy, and then what goes in is supposed to be some form of physical activity and martial art, or is it the other way around, a martial art that's supposed to also put in the Buddhist philosophy?
Bruce Lee studied philosophy. There's a common misconception that he was a philosophy major while he was in college. He wasn't. He was a drama major. But he studied philosophy. If you look at lists of the books in his library, it was Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy. It's all over. In his reading, he definitely, especially towards the end of his life, drifted towards the works of Krishnamurti. He did read a lot of Zen, a lot of Taoist works. And if you look at the notes, and I'm not there, there's definitely people who are more qualified to speak to this, like John Little. If you look at the notes, like there are picked for the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, when you see just in there, if you do a search for Jeet Kune Do is, the majority of quotes you will get are not necessarily technical fighting quotes. They are things like the one I just gave you. Others would be Jeet Kune Do is directed towards yourself. Jeet Kune Do lies in its freedom. Jeet Kune Do favors formlessness. Jeet Kune Do fits in with all styles. So you kind of start to get into the fighting aspect of it. Jeet Kune Do is the enlightenment. So there does seem to be this sense, whether he was successful in it or not, and I'll leave that to you, because he was a flawed human being, but that he wanted more than just, this is my badass system of scientific street fighting, eye gouges and groin kicks. He's dead, so we can't really know. And there are definitely people in the JKD community who are more interested in knee him in the groin, gouge their eyes out, and break their throat. That's cool. That's there. That's a part of it. But I think there's more to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, like Huang Yi, the guy who founded My Lineage of Tang Soo, in his 1958 book, he has a whole section on what he calls Sudo, or spiritual practice. And if you actually take those Chinese characters and plug them into, like what they actually are, mean, it means Taoist monastic life, serious spiritual commitment. And he says that Tang Soo is a weapon that, when being used, can overcome an opponent in an instant. And because of this, you need to have a strong spiritual practice. And I think that, that idea of the martial art being something that can be very violent, being something that has the capacity for this, if you do not balance that out, then you're going to be a problem for you're not going to be a good member of society, and I've always kind of viewed Bruce Lee's kind of balance of having the martial, because he was, he got into a lot of street fights in China apparently, and he was not the best kid. I don't know if I ever told you this, JB. I spent time in at a Franciscan retreat house in Santa Cruz, and they had a cat room, and so I got to go and help with the cat room, because that was amazing. And the lady who ran the cat room, this old sister, she was awesome. She found out I did martial arts, and she goes, Bruce Lee? And I said, yeah, I know Bruce Lee. She goes, I taught Bruce Lee in China when he was little. He was a little shit. He was a little shit. Yeah, apparently, he was a bad kid. And so I could totally 100% see that necessity for that balance in his own training, in his own formation as a young man, specifically after coming here, because I don't think he was allowed to get in trouble here.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting to me having come up in traditional martial arts before I encountered JKD. That's generally an ethos, like you mentioned, Hwang Gi and Dong Sudo. You see that throughout the classical martial arts that Bruce Lee is typically pictured as railing against. Um, using the art to become a better person, some sort of whether it's Zen or Taoism or just a general character building. You see that motif all throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think Bruce Lee was rebelling as much as people say he was.
Right.
You mentioned the quote from Hwang Gi. There's one that my students can probably repeat, maybe not verbatim, but they can definitely repeat it to you in some sense because I've hammered it home quite a few quite a few times. He says that the tools, your natural weapons, have this double purpose. And the first is to destroy the opponent in front of you. And okay, so that's violent. But then he adds a caveat to that: annihilation of the things that stand in the way of peace, justice, and humanity. So you're being violent, but you're not just beating the crap out of anyone. And then the second purpose is to destroy the impulses caused by your own instincts of self-preservation, to destroy the things that bother your mind, not to hurt anyone, but to overcome yourself, to overcome your anger, your folly, and your greed. And he concludes that JKD is directed toward yourself. There's definitely been JKD teachers I've studied under that might have missed that.
Okay.
Yeah. If I may, like when I kind of look at some of the, like we talk about some of the JKD students, some of them you can see got that, and some of them didn't. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, it's so weird. It's, like when you teach, I do find myself wondering who's getting what from me, who remembers what I said, right? Like how much I said throughout class, who remembered which parts.
Right. And what's their perspective on it?
Yeah.
You have no control over that.
No,
None.
You don't, and you shouldn't.
No.
As long as they're willing to show up and train, and unless they're taking what you're giving them, and like I said, you're coming to a Kali class so you can learn to go out and stab people in the back, literally. That's something to be concerned about. But how a student takes what you teach them and lets it affect their life, you can't control that. The more you do, the more of a bad actor you become. And I've had teachers like that. But
I mean like more generally too. Like if I teach a class, it's an hour long, hour and a half long. What pieces do people remember? And what pieces will they forget on the ride home? What pieces have they forgotten by the time class was over? Like even more generally than that. The moral stuff, I don't know about you, John, and your curriculum, and in JB as well. But I've always viewed, well, you know what I mean. In your experience, going through
that works better.
a curriculum, but I've always viewed colored belts as the modern way of weeding out the bad students. Whereas in the old days, it was something else. But now we can't do that. So I've always kind of viewed, we have these colored belts. Why do we have these colored belts? And a lot of people were like, wow, why do I need to learn all these Pyongan forms? Why can't I just jump right into Kusanku? Like, I mean, you could, yes. But I like to think of them as weeding out the students that I don't want to teach real stuff to. I don't want to get deep with the person unless I really know them. And for us color belts, you're roughly 4 years. That's a good amount of time for me to get to know somebody. And if they're not sticking around and if they're not sticking it out, or if it takes them 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, that's fine. That allows me to do that. So I don't know if you have anything, if you've ever kind of experienced that thought process or had something similar in your experience.
Kind of in that vein, it is interesting to me how a lot of times you can't predict who's going to be the ones who stick around just based on that first impression. It is a length of time thing. I recently, I wouldn't say said goodbye, but one of my longtime students just moved across the country to start a new life. When I first met him and started training with him, I would not have guessed that now almost a decade later, it's like a friend moving away. I'm not going to see him in class anymore. He gave me an awesome set of nunchaku as a going away gift. Monogrammed, exotic hardwood. They feel great. But that aside, yeah, it's a process of getting to know someone, and it is a relationship. Uh, at the start, especially if you're running a school as a business, there's a consumer aspect, a customer client relationship. But as you go along, that can't be all there is. Especially like you were saying, Dan, you start teaching different things. You want to know the person, and you if they stick around, you will discover them. And the other side of that is if they stick around, they're going to discover you. So you got to be working on yourself at the same time.
That's great, and that's a great quote if I've ever heard one. You always have to be working on yourself as well, not just with the students. I think I've said this here before. They're an uke until they're a training partner. Like that. I mean, because I feel like that's like the best way to look at it too. Like you're not using somebody as a training dummy because you literally need to show. So a lot of people, you have to show them how to punch. You need to show them how to kick. You need to show them how to do like whatever, right? And then you're basically showing them by doing it on them and having them do it to you until they're ready to actually do it on their own. And how long someone sticks with that, and then you kind of see their character through that. It depends on their situation too. Like for me, who's someone who's failed at running commercial schools, it's one of the things I can't bring myself to be more not saying commercial, but like bring myself to not be more personal with somebody because like this is what I do. This is what I love. This is why I teach professionally, but I teach professionally, I teach English professionally. Public school, I teach in the public school system. But like when I'm teaching karate, like it's almost good that I do that version of it because then when I do karate, it just is that passion thing where and I think it's the same thing with anybody who does any other martial art where it's like some people have to have that commercial aspect of it to pay rent, do this, do that. That's cool. Maybe you're in big blockbuster movies. Maybe you're a guy who or something like that. Like that, I think that helps pay the bills. But
you just have all of your students teach, right?
Well,
are we talking about anyone in particular?
But that's a completely different podcast because like I have been in the situation where there was a guy who owned the school and was the master and never showed up to class. And then who actually is the teaching these classes? Students. Okay. So those are the actual people who are. I guess one question I do have for JB before we wrap up is did Bruce Lee hate karate people?
No, I don't think he did. I think just based on what I've read and heard from some of the people who knew him, he had an issue with people who thought they knew it all. He had an issue with people whose cups were full and were not willing to open their mind to things. I think he was a very, very confident individual, maybe at times too confident, and that rubbed people the wrong way. I think the karate scene at that time was huge, so that was largely the people he was running into. So when he was writing articles about the classical mess, those are going to be the people who, got ticked off. But you see, he had relationships with plenty of karate people: Joe Louis, Mike Stone, Chuck Norris. All these people. Fumio Demura, one of the people he learned how to use the nunchaku for, which is a weapon that he largely made famous thanks to his movies. So I don't think he hated karate people at all.
All right. I mean, I didn't bring it up, but I did want to ask you.
No problem.
Did want to make sure we got because it is funny because his movies do kind of some of the earlier ones have. I'm getting mixed up with some other things, but I mean,
he had, but that was a thread, like that was like a theme.
Yeah,
in Chinese
and
kung fu movies.
You see that still in Chinese movies made about that time period to this day.
The first Ip Man movie.
Getting into issues of nationalism and things like that. And it's not necessarily that Bruce Lee hated karate. It's just that the bad guys in his movies were Japanese because the Japanese occupied China, and you're starting this era of cinema where you want to revive a sense of nationalism. So let's make the bad guys those guys, and let's have our hero kick the crap out of him.
And there's the one thing I did like about Enter the Dragon, where it's like there's just a bunch of like guys in kind of yellowish karate gis going I'm like, oh, that's a great critique of what's going on.
Yeah,
that's wonderful. That's
like,
exactly that's spot on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like watching grown men do a kids class or something. But yeah, I mean, so like that scene in Enter the Dragon, the iconic one on Hans Island, where you see tons of Hong Kong stuntmen who probably, you know, majority of them did not have any actual training in the Japanese martial arts, you know, just doing reverse punches over and over again. Fist of Fury or the Chinese Connection, depending on which edition you have. You know, the bad guys are all Japanese in Shanghai. You look at them and they're all wearing their hakama backwards, because none of them are actually Japanese. They're Hong Kong stuntmen and didn't have a technical advisor to tell them how to put their pants on. So, you know, that's not a issue of Bruce Lee's opinion as much as it was just the cinema of the time.
Yeah, and I think it was just like like his like his like formless form thing. It's like I think a lot of people took that the wrong way, and the endless debate about forms in its own is kind of a headache. To at least have people kind of be like, no, you can do martial arts without this, but you can also not be completely chained to it for no reason and kind of look beyond it. I think popularly helped a lot of people. But
and the formless form thing, it's only part of the equation, because in Bruce Lee's philosophy, which, you know, again comes from Taoism and Zen, if you've read the Heart Sutra, you know, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. You know, you have to have form to become formless. You know, and once you have formlessness, he says in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do that JKD favors formlessness so that it can assume all forms. So it's you're absolutely right. Being chained to the form, being like, well, this is the only way my body can move. This is the only posture I can assume. This is the only way I can issue power. This is, you know, we only fight in this matter. We, you know, don't go to the ground, or we only fight on the ground. Grappling is superior. Striking is superior. You know, you can't. In some ways, the fact that these debates still happen, here we are going on 30 years after the UFC,
which in its own right has its own issues. But like,
well, there's tons of issues with that too. You know, we're now coming full circle where we're seeing guys who are professional athletes who have mastered their Muay Thai game, their BJJ game, going to systems like Taekwondo. Because now all of a sudden, well, that guy knows all the same stuff I do. But if I learn how to do that spinning hook kick, now I've got an edge. So, yeah, right there. Favors formlessness so it can assume all forms.
And you're absolutely right, where like my good friend Keith, who teaches the Wing Chun program at my school, who was John's met as well now, you know, he's always real big on like this idea of JKD being formless. The only reason that it can be formless, or that it could be formless, was because Bruce Lee had form. He had a foundation. And so you can't be formless without form first. And sometimes you want to have more form than not, because you may find, you know, like Huang Yi in his book writes that whenever you're beginning learning, you should learn everything. Even though, like he says, like we all have different body types. We all have different body shapes. We all have different face shapes. And so we're all going to have different things that we're good at. But you don't know what that is yet. You don't know what you're good at yet. You have to learn all the things. And then naturally your what he calls special skills will emerge. It's not that you know, like if you come into the karate class and you're big and strong and you think I'm just going to use my strength, that's not real martial arts training. You have to learn everything about yourself, and then you might go, oh, you know what? I'm actually a better kicker than I thought I could ever be. I've discovered something about myself. But unless you have that function first, unless you have that fundamental training first in that form, then you can be formless. Not the other way around.
one of my mentors, who's not technically a JKD guy, but he's probably more JKD than most JKD people out there. Kelly McCann, combatives Muay Thai coach, Marine Special Missions officer, boxing coach. He says he'll occasionally get people come in, take boxing classes who've basically, been roughing around with their friends in their backyard, and this is my style, this is how I fight. And he says, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but essentially, you don't get to have a style while you still suck.
Yeah.
Your style is what you develop, exactly like you're saying, as you go through the training. You don't know what your style is. And your style evolves and changes. I don't fight like I did in my 20s. And thankfully, because the me now would probably kick the crap out of that kid, and probably tell him to shut the hell up. But style is, and this is where I think Bruce Lee is onto something. Style is something that's nebulous. It evolves with you. So adhering to your style. This is my style. Yeah, that's where you get trapped.
Well, it's also banal too. What does a style end up becoming? Ends up becoming a curriculum. What is a curriculum? That's just like that checklist. So you do a checklist, but that's not technique in the sense of you've developed something that you're working on, right? And that's a harder thing to describe, but it's like the method of how you go about doing something. Like you can walk into a room and just turn on a light and be like, all right, and do a couple push-ups, a couple kicks there, I'm done. Rather than you're going into a room, you're kind of understanding like all the corners of the room, right? And then you're kind of like you're building the awareness of what's going on, right? You're experimenting on different things, and then you're drilling basics. Then you're examining those basics depending upon who you're working with. So I think how we look at the idea of form and style, right, just in itself, right, rather than and like just the word technique, has to kind of be looked at in a different way, because we're so used to style being what's on this piece of paper, technique of being how this guy will put on the ground, rather than kind of in a more holistic way of approaching the physical fit, the physical conditioning, the technical skill, the kind of basic rudimentary stuff, right? And I think that's all there for pretty much every martial art. And I think Bruce Lee was just one of the louder, better voices to point out, like, this is what you guys are doing. Why aren't you doing what you want to be doing? Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
So,
and the thing that kind of brings it home with my students at the beginning, is that, okay, so if we're all learning how to throw a jab, and yes, there's multiple different ways to throw a jab, but for lack of for simplification's sake, we're all doing the same jab. There's only one way to do it. You're going to learn it the same way. I'm going to learn it. We're all going to hit pads at the same time. We're all going to learn body mechanics at the same time. But the benefit of being a heavily sparring-based practice that JKD is, you very quickly learn, well, yeah, we all learn the same thing, but we don't do it the same way. The strategies that I use around my jab are not going to be the same that Dan uses. Dan's tall and lanky. I'm a short, stubby German dude. We don't fight the same, even if it's just going to be limited to that same technique. And so that's where the personal expression of JKD comes in. The expression isn't just saying whatever the hell you want to say, because you could be lying. There's that famous Bruce Lee interview where he talks about honestly expressing yourself. So finding your honest expression in that moment with your jab, that's where your style is. Everything else is just artifice.
Breaking past that's hard for a lot of people, and kind of. But
true. Just even getting close to that is hard for a lot of people.
And even using the word artifice, like people don't use the word art. Like,
it's a good word.
It is a good word. I'm not.
It's a good word.
I got a calendar for Christmas.
That's the true intention of martial arts: expanding people's vocabulary.
There you go. One SAT word at a time.
There we go. Isn't it like not the SATs anymore? Isn't it another thing?
I have no clue.
Just don't go.
Really? Did they change it now? Oh my goodness.
Again.
And you would probably know better than me.
I don't know. My son graduated 3 years ago, and he did the SATs.
Okay.
All right.
So unless it's different now, could be.
God forbid. God forbid. Anyway, gentlemen, I think we've done a good go around on that. JB, anything else you want to conclude on with anything?
No, I'm very happy with the conversation. I had a great time with you guys.
Cool.
Anybody's welcome to come down to Maryland JKD and train with us. Yeah,
He's got an Instagram
at 11:30 on Friday nights. Stoned off your balls,
Don't walk in there. Please don't go on any sort of.
Wait till you're sober.
Yes.
Oh man.
But yeah, MarylandJKD.com. You can find us there. Instagram, YouTube, all those fun places. Our YouTube isn't widely followed. I don't have a lot of instructionals. It's mostly just videos of people sparring, which isn't as interesting as
That's fine. I'm all about the non-interesting YouTube videos. Back in the day when you just like filmed something and it was like, yeah, it's there.
Yeah.
You can watch it before the internet
had
now
you've got to have clickbait and a big intro, and then you have to.
No, you don't. Just get right to it. We just throw this on here because this is another avenue people will listen to it on. But anyway, what are you guys up to this week in terms of training? What's the plan?
Oh,
go ahead, Dan.
What am I doing this week? Same stuff. Gosh, I mean, all we
Different
do
week.
is the same stuff.
Different week.
Yeah.
Same stuff, different week.
Really? I mean, we've been focusing a lot. Like the past couple weeks have been focusing on using the same technique at different ranges. So, using a front kick or a side kick, setting it up with a trap or with a bait and check and grab or whatever. And then depending on the range of the opponent, if they're close, knee them. If they're far, kick them. If they come even closer, throw them to the ground. Trip the leg, sweep the leg, throw them down. All in the same, it's all the same technique. So we've been kind of working that. My Tai Chi class going back to basics, like really, really back to basics. We're looking at just splitting the hips. That's all we've been doing this week, which is essentially standing still with your toes pointed this way and then just allowing your knees to do this, just forward and back, and then having the harmony of your lower body and your upper body, and so your legs are moving your shoulders, not the other way around, and that is very difficult. So we've been going back to that, and isolating that in brush knee and twist up, isolating that in cloud hands, just kind of isolating that leg first movement, which, gosh, I see so many people, JB, you probably can attest to this. I see so many people doing clinch work or so many people doing some sort of close range fighting, and their feet are tiptoeing and they're flittering around like this, and their arms are kind of like doing this.
Yep.
Just waiting to be tossed by somebody who knows what they're doing. And so we've been focusing a lot on that. Stick work, we're going to be focusing next week. I'm going to be doing more feinting, more triangle step functionality. So that's me.
JB, anything?
Yeah. So we're actually going to be doing some karate.
Yes.
We've come full circle.
So, like I mentioned, I started off in Matsubaya Shiryu. I did Dangsudo for many years, and way back in the depths of the early days of the internet, I was actually a moderator on a little known site called Bullshido.
Really?
Yeah, and this was kind of back when the beginnings of the Bunkai craze had just started. Ian Abernathy had put out his first book. Patrick McCarthy had, of course, been doing it for years. And I had this bright idea that, it'd be kind of interesting because I'm on Bullshido where that you have that rough and tumble atmosphere. Most of the people are MMA practitioners. I kind of had this perspective that there was no Jigoro Kano for Bunkai. Karate got to Japan, and the way they took that avenue for live training went into what we see today as modern kumite. The throws, everything else just kind of went by the wayside. So I thought, hey, it'd be really cool to see if I could take the stuff from the Pinan Kata or the Pyongan forms and kind of make it an alive art. And so I started getting into that, and then I kind of had the opinion of, oh hey, well, if I'm going to be doing a lot of grappling, I should probably learn that. If I'm going to be doing clinch work, I should probably learn that. And this coincided right about the time I was starting Jeet Kune Do, and I went hard down that path of learning how to do those things. And then through conversations with Dan, and I'm friends with Mike Nguyen of Karate Culture. It used to be Karate Culture, now Karate Breakdown. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Really, really good dude. Trained at his place out in San Antonio when he had that. And then just watching some of the people like Dan was talking about, trying to teach Bunkai, but have no clinch experience. Anybody from the outside who has done Muay Thai or Judo or Greco are looking at them and thinking this is not good, and if they encounter one of those guys, they're going to get destroyed. And so I decided, I'm going to revive that. I'm going to bring that back, because I don't have, going back to that whole forms idea. Your forms never really leave you. I would need to consult a reference book to go through Kusanku at this point in my career, but I can definitely pull combinations from it that have just been drilled into me. I can do Naihanchi, no problem. But
it'd be hard to forget that one, to be honest. That's like got to be one. I learned it. I learned it a lot of stuff, quote unquote, out of order. I learned when I learned the Hanchi, I'm like, why didn't we do this one? Oh, it's supposed to be first. So.
But so I've basically, I don't. None of my JKD students have learned a karate kata from me, but just, in our training. So if we're going to be working clinch or whatever, let's work this little section of Bunkai. And it's not, they don't learn this is Bunkai. We just work clinch, and here's this throw, or here's this technique. So we've been playing with those things, and it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
Okay. JB, thank you so much.
No problem.
For sharing your thoughts, your knowledge. Everybody check out, what was your website again?
MarylandJeetKuneDo.com.
MarylandJeetKuneDo.com. Cool. And definitely go there, check them out. Dan, thank you for prodding me out of my sleep and my winter slumber and be like, we're doing an episode. I'm like, really? Okay.
This is going to happen more often, John. Just, be prepared.
Oh God, listener, be prepared. All right. Well, Dan, JB, thank you so much. And everybody, don't forget to keep training.